Hey, what's up? I'm Lance Prenc, producer and mix engineer from Australia. We're here at my studio in King Lake, where I worked on records for artists such as Alpha Wolf, Polaris, Void of Vision, Gravemind, Diamond Construct, and many more. I first got started into music when I was probably about 13 or 14. I had an interest in playing guitar, so I joined the local high school band, and I very quickly found out that that really wasn't my speed. I just needed to play faster, play more interesting stuff. Then I just started branching out into sort of hard rock and metal. I guess the most metal thing I started with was like Pantera and Metallica and stuff, and quickly transitioned into just like writing music on terrible programs on my laptop. I think I used Nuendo and like GarageBand and stuff for a few years. I ended up making half alright sounding demos, and that led me to wanting to study, and I did a diploma of audio engineering. I can't really credit that for what I do today. It was not in the realm of anything that I do currently, but definitely helped me like open a door and start working in the industry. I remember when I first started, one of the first things we had to do was get like 40 hours of work experience for the first year, and I freaked out. I was like, oh, how am I going to do that? That's like so much time. And I ended up hitting up some local guys who did sound for shows, and they were like, oh yeah, you know, like, come along. And we got 2 shows this weekend. I ended up doing the 40 hours in like one hit. That was it. And then I just started working with them, doing shows and just meeting people, meeting bands, and then eventually I started getting hired to do live sound at clubs and pubs and stuff by these bands that I was meeting at these shows. And that quickly transitioned me into touring, just going around Australia. I did that for a few years, just got good at live sound, and I just worked on my studio chops at home. I didn't really tell anyone about it, sort of just kept it on the down low. And then once I thought that I was good enough, I started chatting to these guys, and they're all my friends, so they're all like keen to work together. Like I first started recording Alpha Wolf, and I had toured with them for years before I started recording them. And we have literally just grown from there. And the tours get bigger for them, the records start to sound sicker for me, and yeah, it was just like a linear growth for both of us. I ended up recording some albums for Polaris as well. They were a band that I did lots of years of touring with too. I think I started working with them in like 2015 or something, and stayed close friends ever since. And now we've toured the world together. Like in 2022, Alpha Wolf and Polaris did this whole world tour. We did Australia, US, and Europe. And we're all just hanging out, best of friends, and then we just take that over into the studio as well, that whole vibe and energy. We're just hanging out, recording this music, having a great time. I think it's really great to get a good vibe and a good sound working for all these guys in the studio, and it definitely helps the end product too. I think that's really important, to be friendly with these bands, but also be super technical minded when you're working as well. Like I can crack jokes and whatever, but also be thinking about setting up this thing right, recording this thing properly or whatever. It's just like a big advantage to be pretty interested in the tech side of stuff, but also hanging out with friends and having a good time. I don't think I've had like any breakthrough moment in my career really. It's all just sort of been like a steady growth to this point. And I guess it's the same for the guys as well. Every time they release an album, stuff just gets bigger and better. And I mean, that translates to the records as well. I think one of the main things I strive for in my records is just making them punchy and huge. And I mean, I don't really have an interest in anything else. If the speakers aren't jumping out to me, I'm sort of not really into it. I think the thing I enjoy most about what I do is taking something quite average sounding, like raw files sound terribly average on their own, and just making it sound massive. I think that applies for live work as well. If you just throw up a band in a venue and just leave it as is, it sounds pretty god awful. So I think the best part about it for me is just making something that doesn't sound great to sounding really awesome. But I also find that doing that, like from start to finish, the perspective and dynamic is always challenging. I find I have to like reference a lot, get in the headspace and everything. Like you can tweak, one specific instrument for like half an hour and you just lose all sense of space and time with that. And it could suck at the end. So it's important to take a step back, take it all in. That is definitely the biggest challenge of mixing for me. But the most important aspect of mixing in terms of the song, I think, is hearing absolutely everything. Like artists put so much time and effort into making all these little bits and pieces, and there might be like one little lead way in the background there, but it's written for a reason. I feel like the listener is meant to hear that. So I strive for my mixes to make everything like transparent and make it so you can see that everything is there. Like if you're listening hard enough, you'll pick something out that you didn't notice before, but it won't just be buried and you won't be able to listen to it. I think this ControlHub Expansion pack has helped me in that way, that to do those sorts of things, to make you be able to hear everything, I have to use loads and loads of plugins. Like there's things that EQ to death. They are just stacks and stacks, and then the expansion pack just allows me to load on one preset, which used to do something that was like 10 plugins long. I think that's pretty amazing, and especially for me with the outboard stuff, I started when digital was like becoming the thing, working in the box is how everyone does it now. Rather than coming from analog and then going to digital, I have a different way of looking at analog pieces of gear. Like I don't really care where they end up in the chain. They could be at the start, they could be at the end or in the middle, but traditionally analog pieces are at the start of the chain if you did things 20, 30 years ago. So I think a cool thing for me is that it doesn't matter where it is, the tone can happen at the start, middle or end, and that drastically changes how these pieces sound. And I think it inspires me to do different things with the outboard as well. Like some of the tone that you get from heavy compression on the outboard stuff is not like an EQ tone in a way, but it's dynamic, and having that at certain parts in the chain can change how it sounds completely. I think that's really important, and in this expansion pack it's just done for you. You don't have to think about that. You don't have to think that it's a possibility. It just sounds great off the bat. A lot of my go-to signal chains, with the outboard stuff at least, is usually, distressor is pretty much on everything. I also use the Heritage Audio 73 EQ. I'll usually go out of the computer into the EQ, do some general shaping there, into the distressor, and then branch out to either the Allen Smart C2 or I've got an 1176 as well, and just stack them in that way. And I usually print them down at that point, but if I'm running outboard live, like through a mix and it's like real time, I'll split it up into different bits. So kick will go to the distressor, snare will go to the distressor, bass to the 1176, whole mix bus on the Allen Smart and stuff like that. It's really great to now have to do away with all the real-time bouncing. Like an album that's 45 minutes long takes me 45 minutes to bounce. If I use the ControlHub expansion pack, I can have all these bits and pieces, and the bounce could take me like 15 minutes, depending on how great my computer's doing that day. And that's absolutely insane. It's like a massive time saver. It makes it easy to do revisions and recall as well. There's just like no going back and forth, setting up gear with that. It's just like bam, 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 you just get it done. And at the end of the day, I think that's super important. Like your artist that you're working with wants stuff done in a timely manner, and outboard gear and analog signal chains are just not that. What people can expect from my expansion pack for ControlHub is mainly bus presets and some utility things as well. I do most of my heavy lifting on a bus level, so raw and multi-mic tracks go into a bus, and then I do all the processing there. So a lot of the chains are full bus preset chains, and as I said before, that can just take care of like 10 plugins straight off the bat, just in one instance. There's some cool utility pieces as well that go on single tracks, which are, there's a Sweet As Bass one, which is like this low sub thing that I always do. There's a super cool vocal chain that I use as well. I usually go through a 1073 into a distressor and then into 1176. And I've just done that as one capture in the plugin, so I don't have to go through all my outboard anymore. Like if I get raw tracks to mix, I don't have to reamp through it. I can just chuck the plugin on and have that sound instantly. ControlHub did an insane job of being transparent with these chains. Like, it's literally indistinguishable from the plugin chain and the outboard chain, and it just sounds great. I can see myself using ControlHub in a live environment. Currently the tech for using plugins in live shows is a little bit finicky, but I feel like going through all that would be pretty worth it for this. The fact that it's a whole channel strip in one plugin, and then it can have the sounds that I use in the studio straight to live. And even just to like overcook things and use the mix knob as well would be a super handy feature. There's the transient designer is typically not a thing on live consoles. So I think that alone for drums and stuff would be so great to work with. I hope one day in the future I'll start getting this on a live show. I think people like this expansion pack because it's just fast, easy ways to make your raw sounds sound polished and close to finished. I think that's pretty hard to do when you're just working with individual plugins. Like you'll have EQ, compression, tone shaping, distortion, all that stuff, and it just gets out of hand very quickly, and you have to manage all these pieces, and you have to remember that as you go through the mix. You've got to remember what you did where, because if you hear something that's sounding weird, you have to go and find that. I think having it in one plugin is just so easy. Like if you hear something weird, just go to plugin and make changes. There's 2 EQs in the thing, there's a whole tone shaping module. Like it's just so simple to do everything in one place and then move on. And then, as I say, just raw to polished in a matter of seconds is just crazy. And I think it'll make everyone else's job easier, makes everyone else's job faster, and kind of inspirational in a way to just mix more heavy-handedly in other ways, like more effects and stuff, because your CPU's doing okay. It doesn't have to EQ 1,000 different tracks. It's just on a bus doing its thing, and you can forget about it. I think my favorite feature in ControlHub is the fact that it is a whole channel strip. There's not much that I don't need within that plugin. I can do gating outside of it, that's fine, and gating is so finicky anyway that maybe I would want to do that, but the whole EQ, drive, effects and everything being in the plugin, I just don't need anything else. Even the output limiter, super helpful for mastering and taming transients and stuff like that. And it's just there, it's all in one plugin. I don't have to go anywhere else. So I think all in all, I'm very happy with this expansion pack. I think I'm going to use it flat out in my mixes. I'm very stoked to start digging into that. And I think everyone will be stoked with it. It's got a variety of cool stuff. There's lots of easy top-down things to just load on and be happy with and make everything sound great.